ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, and this is my review for Silent Hill F. So, dear viewers, this particular video game released, just today in fact. And just like that beautiful bearded bastard Barry Burton, you're probably wondering,
what is this?
Silent Hill F is the latest in the long-running Silent Hill series of video games. Video games so frightening that they convinced me to take out a subscription to my local underpants boutique. I'm sure you know the gist by now. Navigate fog-laden locations, solve puzzles, and battle grotesque creatures. The story this time sees us playing as Hinako Shimizu a high school student who navigates her town in 1960s set Japan. And that's pretty much all I'm going to tell you without spoiling the bloody game. So in the words of my late mother while she patiently waited for her nightly bubble bath, let's get on with this shit. Let's review this horror video game the only way I know how, badly. And let's start with what I absolutely love about Silent Hill F. Like I already said, this is a particularly frightening series of video games. I always found them to be infinitely more scary than the Resident Evil series, for example. And Silent Hill F is no exception. There's plenty of jump scares. The monsters are more grotesque than the underside of your dead grandmother and or grandfather. The music is ooky spooky. The atmosphere is full of dread. If you played a Silent Hill video game before, you know exactly what I'm bloody talking about. I hinted about the ooky spooky music, and while it may not be quite as memorable as some of the other soundtracks in this series, Silent Hill 2, I'm looking at you, this is still a very, very good musical score. And there's a lovely English dub to go along with it. Yes, I know it's probably sacrilegious to play these games, and as opposed to using the Japanese audio, instead use the English audio. But I don't want to be taken from behind by some grotesque oddity while I'm trying to read the bloody subtitles. So English voiceover is the way I like to play these games. And it's splendid. From our lead character Himiko, to our parents, to her best friends, to that weird chap in the fox mask, to her big sister, everyone is splendidly voice acted. What's also very splendid about this game is its visuals. Beautiful, yet grotesque. So I suppose we could say grotesquely beautiful. Tentacles sprouting from here, blood over there, weird pustules up the middle, chlamydia on the right. I mean, big fat monster on the right. Of course, the game also looks beautiful without all of that grotesque bloodiness, of course. The fictional town here with all its winding alleyways, houses, shrines. It's all marvelous to look at. Just, don't admire the scenery for too long, otherwise you may run into that getting taken from behind that I mentioned earlier. The game's underlying story, you know, what is actually going on beneath the fog and the monsters, was also an absolute joy to uncover. Take my advice, dear viewers, this is not a one playthrough and done kind of game. To fully understand the game's story, you're gonna have to play through the thing twice, 3 times, 4 times. In fact, before this review, I played through the game 5 times. That's right, 5 times. Not 6 times, 5 times. And that was so I could achieve all of the game's 5 different endings. one of which is a joke UFO ending, which was amusing. So yes, you can expect to have to replay this game several times. Just maybe look up a guide so you know how to unlock all of the other endings. And each of these subsequent endings are going to add a hell of a lot of context to what's going on in this game. If you would like to hear my theories that I had after playing through the game twice about what was going on, you can check out that video on this channel. But I'm going to keep this relatively spoiler-free, so I'll just say the actual story was great. So let's move on to what I didn't like so much about Silent Hill F. And I only really have two problems here. One of which, you might have heard this one from other reviewers, is the game's combat. It kind of plays like a Souls-like game, relying on dodges, a stamina bar, and on my first playthrough, this frustrated me quite a bit. Up until about the halfway point in the game, when you then get access to let's call it a very hairy kind of power, and that actually made the combat much more manageable in those particular sequences where you were allowed to use it. Of course, in other playthroughs, you can unlock a magic sword, a space weapon. You'll get access to melee weapons a lot quicker in your subsequent playthroughs, so thankfully over time the combat does become much more manageable. But I had to mention it here because it's not the best combat system in a game. And of course, unlike other Silent Hill entries, you won't be using firearms in this game, so I hope you're good at dodging out of the way of those monstrosities. Otherwise, you guessed it, you're liable to be taken from behind. My other tiny nitpick, and this might actually be something that, through more replaying of the game, I may change my mind on, but I didn't really find anything in the way of a link to the previous games in the series. And I found that to be just a little teeny tiny disappointment, but like I said, I might have missed something in my 5 or so playthroughs, and I might discover something in a future playthrough, so that's a little teeny tiny niggle. But in conclusion, dear viewers, this is an absolutely fantastic survival horror video game thingamajig. A worthy entry into the Silent Hill franchise. Is it better than Silent Hill 2 Remake? I'll have to give that some thought. But this game is definitely up there with the best of the Silent Hill series. Therefore, I declare that Silent Hill F is, well, fantastic. Get it? Silent Hill F. The F is for You know, I never did figure out what the F stands for. Bugger, are you still here? Oh, you must have really enjoyed this video then. In that case, you had better subscribe to the channel and check out our other content. Otherwise, you're a booby pants, and no one wants to be a booby pants.